On the evening of May 2nd, 1902, Ludger Sylbaris, a native of the Caribbean island of Martinique, was having drinks at a local bar, and likely had one too many. A few hours later, he found himself arrested and jailed after getting caught up in a street brawl. Yet Ludger refused to sit quietly in his cell and attempted a daring escape a few days later. As punishment for his defiance, authorities transferred him to the prison's most isolated solitary confinement cell. Located out in the open courtyard, this dark, windowless vault was built from massive stone slabs sitting deep in the sloping hillside. On the morning of May 8th, most inmates had already been given their breakfast, but because Ludger was in solitary confinement, he was still waiting for the guards to bring his morning meal. It never arrived. Shortly before it was due, the earth shook violently. His stone cell rattled, and he heard loud, deafening blasts. The skies outside suddenly darkened, and a low-frequency hum echoed through the dark, and it was growing rapidly louder. Before he could fully process that the eruption everyone had been fearing was finally happening, the impact hit. Superheated, pitch black, ash-choked air forced its way through the small grating above his door and the narrow opening underneath it, leaving him gasping for air as the heat severely burned his body. Acting on pure survival instinct, he frantically stripped off his shirt and pants, moistened them with his own urine, and stuffed the wet cloth into the door frame and grating. It saved his life, drastically reducing the amount of scorching gas seeping in. The main blast lasted only a few minutes before the violent shaking and deep humming ceased. He was left in total suffocating darkness, realizing from the heavy silence that the prison building completely crumbled and his cell was under rubble and debris. Hot, toxic air still drifted through the cracks, and faint explosions rumbled in the distance. Gradually, all noise stopped, save for occasional, distant tremors. Exhausted by the lack of oxygen and the excruciating pain of his burns, Ludger collapsed into unconsciousness. When he awoke, he was met with intense pain, hunger, and a desperate thirst. Everything around him was silent and dark. He screamed for help, but his cries faded into the ruins to no avail. For 4 agonizing days, he drifted between a half-dreaming and half-wakeful state, surviving only on drops of condensation that accumulated on the stone floor near the door. Convinced he was going to die in his tomb, Ludger prayed to God for a miracle. He lost all track of day and night, but amidst the heavy silence, he suddenly thought he heard footsteps and muffled voices drifting through the thick debris. Mustering every ounce of strength left in his frail body, Ludger began to scream. To his amazement and profound relief, answering voices called back through the rubble. Finally, after several hours of agonizing anticipation, the heavy door was pried open and he was pulled from his stone tomb. Ludger was horrifically burned, and doctors openly doubted whether he would survive. However, fueled by a naturally robust constitution, his body fought back. His burns slowly healed, and he made a miraculous recovery. But what had actually happened above ground while he was trapped in total darkness? Mount Pelée, at whose feet the city of Saint-Pierre sat, had violently exploded at roughly 8 a.m. on May 8, 1902. In an instant, it wiped out nearly 30,000 people. Virtually the entire population of the city. Death did not arrive in the form of slow-moving lava, but rather as a catastrophic pyroclastic flow. This supersonic avalanche consisted of pulverized rock debris and superheated, toxic gases reaching temperatures up to 700 degrees Celsius. Traveling at speeds upward of 700 kilometers per hour, the cloud incinerated and leveled everything in its path, decimating the thriving metropolis in mere minutes. The destructive fury did not stop at the shoreline. The pyroclastic flow swept across the surface of the water, striking the harbor and destroying almost every ship anchored at port. The heat was so intense that the sea literally began to boil. For days afterward, the ruins remained a scorching wasteland, emitting a radiant heat so severe that rescue teams from neighboring towns were physically barred from entering the city. Amazingly, Ludger Sylbaris was not entirely alone. 2 other individuals managed to survive the initial blast. Leon Compère Leandre, a shoemaker positioned at the extreme edge of town who managed to find shelter in a sturdy building, and Havivra da Ifril, a young girl who fled in a small boat and hid inside a nearby sea cave. Yet, because Ludger was trapped directly in the epicenter of the calamity, he became the ultimate symbol of luck, survival, and human persistence.